the Ultimate Warrior. It is. Look at that.
Come on out here and give it your all.
3 eyes, JR.
His name is Eric Bischoff.
I cannot believe this. I'm absolutely in shock. It's him.
Chicago's own CM Punk.
The hometown hero has come home after 7 years.
This is the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, presented by Hami Media and the Pro Wrestling Reflection, where we discuss the very best of the best in pro wrestling history.
And what you gonna do when Hulkamania and the largest arms in the world run wild on you?
The two soundest wrestlers in the World Wrestling Federation, maybe in the history of the World Wrestling Federation, are right here, right now. Mr. Perfect and the excellence of execution, the Hitman.
WrestleMania weekend isn't complete without the Heartbreak Kid, and he is on his way.
He put hard times on Dusty Rhodes and his family.
They think they got the answers. I change the question.
You will rest in peace.
Get used to it in Ric Flair. Who you're looking at, the man.
This man! What the rock is
What is going on there, Reflectionites? What is going on there to the big Vitoites, to the Hami Knights, all the ice all over the world, the 12 most important ice? You know who you are. WWE Throne, you know who you are. Wrestling podcasts all over the world, you know who you are. All the Magnificent 7, Elite 8, the Naughty 9, the 250, 10, the Essential 11, you know who you are. Did you miss us because we took a week off? You know we have to take a week off. We have to, recharge the batteries. We give you banger after banger after banger. And when you give those kind of bangers all the time, you have to rest. No homo. You just have to rest. You just have to recharge batteries. Because I know where TW's going to go every time I say banger. But he's going to say, who's sliding, what male sliding the Professor's DM? So I already stopped you from that. I already did the Eminem 8 Mile rap. I already knew what you were going to say to me. But anyway, neither here nor there. But again, we just needed to rest. We needed to recharge our batteries. And of course, the most important reason why we took the week off is TW's exemplary attendance record. He's available, so I reward him with a week off. He deserves it. I can't pay him no money. I don't give him dental. I don't give him medical. So the best thing I can do is offer him a week off, and TW does it. Goes to the bars. He gets drunk. He gets plastered, and he's having fun. So he deserves it. Now he's back. He's sobered up. So is the Professor, and we are here for a TW-inspired Pro Wrestling Spotlight. But before we do that, before we get into this TW special, I must introduce myself because I am vain like that. I must introduce myself because I gotta lose some years. I gotta get younger. I feel older. The body's crinkling. My shoulder hurts. My knees hurt. Everything hurts, and I must get younger right now. So with that, shut the hell up. But anyway, with that being said, I am the most charismatic one. I am the most effervescent one. I am the most studious one. I am the most Cocazoid one. What the hell are you going with?
Glorious.
Well, I must say that. But see, you always jump the gun too much. But neither here nor there.
That's never the cokiest one before.
Because I had to read the thesaurus right now. So, but again, let me do my intro, please. Now I feel I got a little older right now. Now I'm gonna get younger right now because I am the most glorious one, the most objective man in the IWC, YWC, PWC punditry. Your friend of mine, the Professor Chabelle the Cruz, and I'm not here alone. No. I am here with my brother from another mother, the man who cannot stop Apple right now. It is controlling his every move. It knows what he's doing. It knows when he sleeps. It knows what he eats. It knows where he goes from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. He is your friend of mine, Mr. WWE in its own. The conservative liberal conservative. Dr. Freakenstein himself, Mr. Wonderful. Tommy Wonder. What were you holding up? I saw NWO aficionado stuff. Was it a magazine?
It's weird because the whole time that camera was moving, that was not me. I pulled this up like this. Look.
There you go. It's
doing
moving
it on its own. Like it knew. That's insanity. But this is Ringside Collectibles exclusive. It's the retros. It looks like the Hasbros when we were kids. But I'm mad because look how thin this box is. Looks like a board game. And normally, this is the last one. Is
that like photos and magazines and stuff?
No, it's figures.
And then they're miniaturized.
They look like these. This is an old Hasbro figure.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's small, so it makes
90s.
Sense a little bit.
Yeah. But these came from, you have to order these. These were the 4 that never got released. It was supposed to be Luger, Doink, Tugboat, and Greg the Hammer Valentine is Rockabilly or whatever. Anyway, those you have to buy from, where's the other one? You had to buy from Mattel directly, like it's called Mattel Creations, which, by the way, the crowdfunding for the Nitro ring and 5 awesome Ultimate Edition figures failed, so it's not happening. But anyways, those are exclusive, but they're 2-packs instead of 4 individuals. It's 2 2-packs. Hogan and X-Pac come together for some reason, and then Hall and Nash, obviously. But anyway,
because that's the NWO connection, so
right.
It has to be.
But before we start our show, I got a bitch. Listen.
When do you not bitch?
Last week, for the second time. See, my fucking Siri's mad at me. Last week, for the second time in 11 months. Last year I went in June. This year I went in May. Last year I paid $100 to sit in the mezzanine, which is the little ring between the upper and lower bowls. I did that.
Oh, you're going to talk about your excursion, the fun time you had at Little Caesars Arena where TW himself enjoyed the 5 hours of AEW. He enjoyed the 2-hour Dynamite. He enjoyed the 1-hour Rampage. Probably enjoyed a one hour dark House Rules matches or whatever. So what say TW?
Last year I bought my tickets early because I thought it was going to sell out. It did not sell out. As I walked up, I could have got my same ticket that I spent $105 on for $35. But last year there were more people there. This year it was not as full, but I did watch it back on TV and it looked full, so at least that was there. But there was a lot of empty seats on the main level plus up top. But
during Dynamite or during Rampage? Because
Rampage or Dynamite for Dynamite.
Oh, okay.
So last year Adam Cole was hurt; he wasn't there. So this year I'm like, he's in one of the top feuds with Jericho. He's gonna be there, not even booked. And then Jericho's not even there because he's backstage telling us that if he's there, Adam Cole can't be there. Then Roddy Strong comes out to tell us that's my backup number 2, Roddy. He is there to tell us he's going to wrestle next week. I don't know if you heard it on TV, but that entire arena booed when Roddy Strong said next week.
Yeah, I heard that.
But last year, I watched the tapings for Elevation or whatever that other show's called. I watched the whole Blood and Guts show. I sat around for 30 minutes while they cleaned up after Blood and Guts, and I didn't leave there until after midnight for Rampage. This year, as soon as Dynamite ended, I got up and left. I didn't even stay. I mean, Dynamite. I didn't even stay for whatever the fuck it's called.
Rampage.
Because I had my buddy text me at home going, hey, man, are they saying what matches are going to be for Rampage? And he's like, not yet, not yet. And then when they said the only one I think I wish I'd have stayed for, and it would have been first, is the Acclaim. I wish I'd have stayed for that. But other than that, I watched it, and I think Tony Storm wrestled. That was horrible. But I got to tell you, I know everyone thinks I hate AEW. I do not. I gave them $100 again for this ticket that I could have got for $35 walking up, but it was a much closer seat. I know my pictures, everyone thought I was in the nosebleeds. I was in the lower level, 16 row from the barricade, right where Moxley came out to come to the ring. I was right above him. Anyway, last year, I thought Blood and Guts was horrible to watch live because when they weren't on camera, the wrestlers that were in the match were just sitting there like this, like they knew they weren't on camera. It was so unprofessional. Jack Swagger rolled between the apron and the ring, so you couldn't see him hiding, on the side of the ring. This time, dude, all I can tell you is I was bored to death for most of it, and that makes me sad because, granted, something said about
even with the cage match, you couldn't do this. You couldn't do this.
That match was so unbearable to watch, and I don't know. It had to get picked up on camera. John Moxley went Broadway with that turnbuckle. He couldn't get it off. One time limit draw. Finally got it off, and they gave him the Bronx cheer, which you know what the Bronx cheer is. It's a Yankees reference where they cheer him for just doing his job, right? And when he did it, he turned and looked at the crowd and goes, and like celebrated. I would hope they didn't put that on TV because that's not his character, right? He's supposed to be serious. But it took so long. I didn't see Don Callis turning on him. I keep reading everybody did. I didn't. I thought it was stupid that the Young Bucks helped him in the beginning, but then didn't come save him when Don Callis turned on him. So that was weird. But here's the deal. And again, I've been to an Impact show. I've been to a WWE show, and now I've been to AEW twice. It's run like an indie show. It is so I don't want to say unprofessional, but it's not well run. To be there live and to see it.
The word you're looking for is structured.
It's not structured at all. It is like Impact was I wasn't familiar with. I'm way more familiar with AEW than Impact. But I sat at that pay-per-view last month or whatever it was, 2 months ago, and I enjoyed every second of it. I didn't know who half these people were, and I just watched it. It was good. It was structured. Raw, SmackDown. I've told you my number one thing I hate about Raw and SmackDown is when they go to commercial for you, it goes dark in the ring, and the wrestlers just stand there and wait for the lights to come back on. But not if they already started wrestling. That's just if they're introduced. They got to sit there for 4 minutes while it's a commercial. But it was just so bad, and I just thought, man. And then the fans around me were questioning why Claudio would be wrestling for a shot at the tag belt. Why, if he lost it and the guy just win the belt? Why did he win he gets a shot then. I always feel non-title matches are dumb. If you lose, that guy's the champion now. That's how it should be. That's how I would book a promotion. It would be absolutely no non-title matches. But you had fans around me.
You're questioning the Booker of the Year three times over?
People around me were. They're like, yeah, that's kind of a weird stipulation. And there were people, and I told my buddy that went with me, I said, dude, if the diehards start smelling turds, this company's in trouble. Because, I mean, I hope that Wembley Stadium is a rebirth. I hope they make it there with some momentum, and I hope it's a rebirth, and then they come out
70,000 and counting. So
yeah, but it's in one country. It's not they've never been to. So that's 70,000. Do it in Dallas. Do it in Dallas, and I'll jump up with you and be like, yeah. But someone needs to sit Tony down and see. So you keep doing Tony stuff. They got to sit him down and just give him better help.
He's got better help. That's JEWF.
But
JARREWT. Yeah. Well, I don't know about booking, but he's booking the arenas now. So he's booking the venues. So.
But it's not all doom and gloom. Even though I paid $105 for that ticket. Even though I paid $40 for some chicken, fries, and one beer.
Okay.
Even though I spent $80 in merch, only to get the newest Adam Cole shirt. It's sweet. It's got pink in it. It's awesome. I told that dumb bitch extra large. I put it on the other day. She gave me a large. So I got to lose weight to wear that shirt. Otherwise, it looks like I'm pregnant. But I didn't walk away empty-handed. Bam!
Micro Brothers.
I thought I missed out on both of these. They were like a 1 week exclusive on ProWrestlingTees.com, and I got them both. I paid $20 each for them both, but that's what I would have paid on ProWrestlingTees.com. So now I just need a Lex Luger American Flag version and Cody Rhodes Micro Brawler. I think I'm good with Micro Brawlers.
There you go. So you had a great time, maybe, but it was the investment. It was the investment journey.
I paid $200 for 2 figures and a shirt I can't wear.
It's all worth it. It's all worth it at the end of the day.
$220
with tax. I get you. But anyway, that was TW's adventures, so to speak. We have.
And this shirt is not as wrinkled as it's looking on the screen. This is a smooth shirt. I think it's the chest hair underneath it is making it look wrinkled.
Yeah, it's the rippling, the nipples, and then your chest hairs. All that's popping out right now. So anyway, let's get into this TW special. This is TW's handpicked idea that the professor loved. And this is a pro wrestling spotlight, greatest returns and debuts. So, for the Reflectionites, for the 12 ride or die, you already know. For this one, it's going to be a little bit different because we have to venture the present and then work our way back into the past a little bit. Why did TW do this? Well, because I'm going to give you the wrestling reason first, at least for today's purposes, 2023 purposes. Whether TW agrees with it or not, I don't know. I can read his mind. I'm telekinetic like that. But anyway, the reason I believe that TW picked this is because what is going on right now? AEW's new show, Collision, is going to happen on TNT this coming June. Their first show is going to be in Chicago.
Dead giveaway.
And somebody is returning for the second time, and they're calling it the second coming. But we're going to get into that return a little bit later. But it dawned on TW and it dawned on the professor to really hone in on this kind of subject because it's a very, I don't think a lot of nostalgic podcasts really hammered down on this because you know what? One reason is this. You can only do maybe 5 minutes of a show. You can only name your greatest returns. There's really nothing to talk about what did they do, what moves did they do, did they win the match or all that stuff. So again, as fans, we are going to try to explain this as best as we possibly can because I'm going to give you the fandom on my end because I have some memories of greatest returns and debuts that popped the professor. But I want to start a little bit differently because I want to talk to the man that kind of experienced it in his wrestling days. Calavera Cortez himself, Los Rudos himself. I wanted to talk to TW first. Don't use examples, TW, of other wrestlers. I want to talk about your experiences here because you went on the highways and byways in Michigan and Ohio and all this stuff. You wrestling Border City. You wrestling other big time wrestling, whatever the case may be. But I know in your wrestling days, you went from, let's say, big time wrestling to Border City Wrestling, and then returned to big time wrestling. And I know fans remember Calavera Cortez. I know fans remember Los Rudos. So I want, because we are doing the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, your handpicked episode, I wanted to start with you, TW, you, Calavera Cortez, you and your partner, Los Rudos. I'm sure that you had, I wouldn't say the greatest debut because, with all due respect, in the indie shows, nobody knows who Calavera Cortez is just yet. But you build the rep of Calavera Cortez. You build the rep for Los Rudos. So I'm sure you had better debuts than you did with the better returns than debuts. So let's say TW in the experience of.
Well, actually, I have two, and you're allowing me to name drop one of them right now. So, there was CWF and GLW. Basically, the same people ran them, but one person was the booker. Two guys ran them, but they ran them like we were all one promotion, even though they had two different call letters and champions were different. So GLW and MTW, if you wrestle, not MTW, MTW is the greatest promotion in Michigan history, but GLW and CWF, Championship Wrestling Federation, Great Lakes Wrestling, which Great Lakes Wrestling went on to be an NWA affiliate, and I was the number 5 contender for the NWA World Light Heavyweight title because I wrestled Ronnie Vegas in Flint, Michigan, but I lost. But anyways, so as a tag team Los Rudos, I turned on Rico. I was a bad guy most of the time. Me turning on him made him a good guy, obviously. And so I had 2 different returns where I ended up being a good guy. One of them was still as Calavera Cortez, but I was in a different tag team with Mike Legacy. I think I told the story before. Missy Hyatt was supposed to be on the show, and she backed out like the day of the show or the night before. And they got me to replace her. And I was a surprise opponent for Skull Gans. I came in, beat him for the title. Everybody went banana because Calavera came back, and I, by myself, singles, and won the belt. And I wrestled there for a couple more months and made the mistake of going to wrestle for ICW, Insane Championship Wrestling, because this is where I made a debut.
Okay.
That one was a return. This one's a debut. So when I made my debut for ICW, it was actually my second return there. That's what it was. This is all tied together. I had already went there because during Los Rudos matches for GLW and CWF, the crowd would chant sex and violence. And I would look around and go, what the fuck? Like Bush, remember? No sex in your violence. So I used to think, why are they chanting that? Because we're wrestling 2 old dudes called the Outlaws, my buddies, one's rest in peace, Woody and Dave. But they weren't saying sex and violence to them guys. They were in their almost 40s when I'm in my 20s wrestling them. So I'm like, I kept going, why are they chanting sex and violence? Next month, they did it again. And little do I know, it's a tag team in ICW. So someone finally says, oh, it's a tag team over in ICW. When they wrestled, the crowd chants Los Rudos. So I found out that the fans wanted to see Los Rudos versus Sex and Violence, but the problem was the original Forbidden Door, the one in Michigan. And so I was like, well, let's give it to them. And I told the guys that I wrestled for, I'm like, hey, man, bring these guys in. Can't do it. They work for Malcolm. And I go, okay. I called Malcolm, who gave me my very first. Malcolm Monroe used to wrestle against the Sheik in Detroit all the time, Sweet Daddy. God rest his soul. I called him up and I said, hey, Malcolm, he's got a team called Sex and Violence down there. They're chanting their names when I wrestle. I go, let's do it. He's like, you'll come over here and wrestle? And I'm like, hell yeah, I will. And I went, and that was it. They stopped using this for CWF. So that's when I came back as myself and beat Skull Gans. Sex and Violence is Joey Legend, and Sexton Hardcastle, who we all know and love, is Edge. And when we showed up and wrestled them, that place went banana because we were surprised. They didn't even tell them that we were there. And it was for a tag team tournament. It was 4 teams. Los Rudos, the Outlaws, who I told you about, who they ended up going over and wrestling because I said I was. And Sex and Violence and the Suicide, or not the Suicide Blondes. It was I don't even remember their team. But
well,
that
we'll
team
call them the Suicide
well, the
Blondes.
Suicide Blondes were Sex and Hardcase.
I know. I'm just saying. Let's just.
But this was
that
Zach Wilde and Christian Cage.
Oh,
so
okay.
me and Rico beat Zach Wilde and Christian Cage. Sex and Violence beat the Outlaws, and then we wrestled, and that place was like, holy shit, holy, like an ECW chant. To GLW and CWF's credit, they had bigger crowds. There weren't that many people at the ICW shows. And they were on the other side of town. So that's another reason why I didn't get it. Like, you're 50 minutes away from each other. Why do you care if we wrestle? Obviously it's the same fan base, and you're not getting all of them. So use both of us, and they'll come to every show. So they chant holy shit.
The invisible line, the invisible borderline.
Had one of the best matches I've ever had, in that night. Ended in a dusty finish, no winner. Setting up the return match where we fought again, to where I did have the best match of my career, Sex and Violence versus Los Rudos, and it was awesome. And then after that, I went back to the CWF and did that. Then I went and wrestled Christian in a singles match, but they made me lose my belt first because they didn't want their champion looking bad. So I ended up going back there, and that was on close to the town, and people popped when I came out as a surprise opponent for Christian Cage. So I did have a couple that were not on the level of the ones we're going to talk about here, but locally.
No, I just wanted the Reflectionites to understand it from your perspective and your background and all that stuff. So my
favorite one though, real quick, but there, I don't want to say the fans didn't remember us, but it had been so long that I don't think every fan there would have been someone who saw us before, right? So,
what year are we talking about?
2000. Next year's 04. No, this fall will be the 25th anniversary of BCW. Actually, 30th. So yeah, because it was my 30th will be next year. 30th anniversary of BCW. So it was 10 years ago. So 2013. Yes, that's when I broke my hand. I hadn't wrestled for BCW since 2001 when I got kicked out of Canada because I wouldn't buy a visa. So from 2001 on, I wrestled for OCW, which was what you call a outlaw wrestling federation, because BCW owns Windsor and anywhere around there. So we wrestled for them at a bar called Dillon's. So for 12 years, I hadn't wrestled for BCW. And at the 15-year reunion, which would have been 5 years sooner, 2008, I went to the reunion show and they put us on the TV at like highlights. And then I did I spoke, and I'm on a DVD talking about the beginnings of BCW. And then 5 years later, I came out and I wrestled in the Legends match. And so for me personally, yes, there was a handful of people going, yes, Tommy Wonder. Because by then I was Tommy Wonder again. I wasn't Calavera Cortez. And that's what I started out as. So for me personally, that would have been my emotional one, is coming out and doing that. Until I broke my hand, and then it ruined the whole fucking night. And I was going through a divorce.
Well, that actually goes into the question I want to ask you, because while we're doing this as fans, we're going to talk about Reflectionites' greatest returns and debuts, and we'll give our favorite fandom moments in just a bit. But I want to ask this to you, TW, because of this. Every wrestler always has this kind of like question for themselves when in regards to either a debut, well, more into the return, not the debut. The return is, do the people miss me? Will the people be invested in me?
Remember me.
Or remember me. So, TW, can you get into the wrestler's psyche of how, like, before even going through the curtain, how, daunting of that thought process is for the wrestler?
It's not just that. It's coming out wrestling in general. Like, that's the one thing about indies is we call them spot shows, where you're going to a town for the first time. You got one shot, and you come out and fall flat. Not only does this promotion might not ever wrestle there again, but if everyone else does good, but you ain't coming back with them if they do. So that's why even as a kid, I hated the idea that Ricky Steamboat got punished for outshining Hogan at WrestleMania 3, which I disagree. I think as someone that was there, it was just a fucking awesome night because everything was great, right? I didn't look at it as Steamboat outshine Hogan. However, I did leave with a Ricky Steamboat poster and him as my new favorite wrestler. But I still care that Hogan beat Andre. You know what I mean? So when you're on an indie show, if your mentality is not, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to steal the show. If that isn't what you try to do every single time, and to add to it, I heard someone say this before. It might have been a pro football player, hockey player. Somebody said it. They said, if you don't have butterflies every time you go out there, then stop doing it, right? Because you should have, it might have been a wrestler. You should always have butterflies because if you're not nervous, you don't care. And so when you don't wrestle for a while and you come back, I'll give you a more recent example, also 2013. I hadn't wrestled in Lima, Ohio since probably 98, 99 because I got a job working Saturdays and I couldn't make it down there for Saturday shows anymore. So it had been a good almost 15 years. And I went down and for the first Hall of Fame induction ever, I inducted the Outlaws, the guys that I keep talking about. And when I went down there, absolutely was certain no one was going to remember me. You know, like these people watching now is a whole new generation. They probably don't even know Al Snow for that matter because he hadn't been wrestling in Lima since he went to WWE. And when I came out and stood on the podium to introduce Bobby Lee, it wasn't everyone, but I heard enough shouts of Calavera, Tommy Wonder. I heard enough of them that I felt great immediately. Like, man, that's all you hope for is at least one person knows who you are. Right. When they say your name, it gives credence to the fact that you're there inducting somebody.
And it was worth it. That your career was worth it. The blood, sweat, and tears. Right. And the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into that venue and that organization and that town was all worth it just to get, you know, people saying Calavera Cortez or Tommy Wonder. So, you know, again, Reflectionites, this is a great choice by UTW. So, you know, that's why I wanted to start with you because I wanted you to give that wrestler perspective on it. Now we'll give it to the fan perspective that we've seen. We have years. We have mountains of returns and debuts, but we're not going to name them all because then there'll be a 5-hour show and I'm not going to do that to y'all. But anyway, we're going to start with the man in 2021 that really like gives me the starting point to even do this greatest returns and debuts because this man did it all in one shot in 2021. In August of 2021, AEW brought back after a 7-year hiatus. He didn't do anything else. He didn't go to New Japan. He didn't go to Impact Wrestling. He didn't do Ring of Honor, but he was on Twitter a lot. He blocked me on Twitter, but that's neither here nor there. But in August, he did Fox, but in a ring in front of 10,000 people, he came back after 7 years, and that is CM Punk. And he's going to have a second coming when AEW has their second show. But we're not talking about that, TW. Let's just talk about 2021, CM Punk, 7-year hiatus. We can remember the visuals. There was a guy who became a meme crying. That wasn't me. That wasn't me. That's not a doppelganger.
That was you.
No, that was Ray's cousin. But neither here nor there. But the meme of a guy crying for CM Punk, it meant something to that gentleman right there. We can make fun of the meme. We can have all these jokes and all that stuff.
Never made fun of that guy once. I love that guy. I would meet that guy. I would buy that guy a drink. I'd hang out with that guy.
Right. But the aura, the presence of a 7-year hiatus, people, no matter how you feel about CM Punk, Reflectionites, very polarizing person, very polarizing personality, TW, but you cannot deny the impact, even for 7 years away, 10,000 people chanting CM Punk. The anticipation was there, and just they didn't want him to even speak first. They just wanted to keep chanting his name. So what say you, TW, about that aura, the guy crying, and that meaning of not only it's a return to a wrestling ring in front of 10,000 people, but a debut all roll up into one.
You know what? it was. I'm pretty sure they didn't advertise it. It was the worst kept secret, just like June's going to be. I was one who wasn't going to believe it until I saw it, and I had two feelings. You know that I've since come around on him. I'll say how I really feel from my own opinion for June, and see how he comes back. My two opinions were, good for you. You should have done this a long time ago. But as soon as he starts burying WWE, I'm like, it fell for me, right? But when you just said it was 2021, I had no idea who you're going to talk about, because I literally thought it was 2022. So that means this summer would be 2 years ago already, and he's almost missed a year because he got hurt in September, I think.
He got hurt in September and then beat up the Elite and then got suspended, you could say. A double secret probation thing. So, and of course, legalities and all that stuff. But
it's not, I don't think it's the best comeback ever, just because it's great. And I'm not really talking about the result after. I'm just talking about that aura, that feeling for everybody, and especially the guy crying because it was 7 years. I love that guy because, I don't want to flop around, but that guy was me in 1993, I believe, or 92, whatever year it was. But I'm glad it happened. And to me, just like I say about Kurt Angle going to Impact, he had to do it because he probably wouldn't still have been in the business if he would have kept. He probably wouldn't be alive if he kept the pace he was going with the WWE, with pain pills and all that. But I feel like, especially how it all played out, at some point, CM Punk has to go back to the WWE. I don't know how or when. I have more hope that that's going to happen now after the stuff that just happened recently. But I'm glad it happened. And I'm glad that guy cried. And I'm glad that new people got to see him. And I'm especially glad because it turned out that him and I hate the same people. And so me and Punk are one and the same. And that turned me around on him, because same thing with listening to that FDR guy's podcast. You have these opinions of people because of what you see them do on social media. But at the end of the day, it boils down to one thing. CM Punk has passion for the business. It's what he always wanted to do. He's done it. He's made millions doing it. He's a household name. If the cards play out the way they should be, he will be in the WWE Hall of Fame. He will have a Legends deal. He'll have all that stuff. I think it's closer to ever happening now, whereas before I didn't, because that was my problem with it. I felt like it was only happening so he could take shots at the WWE. I think him doing that Fox show was proof that he still had an itch for it. You know what I mean? And I think then, if AEW doesn't exist, it ends up being WWE. But once that came around, that just made it all the more possible to do it without selling out and all that kind of stuff. But I'm glad he did it, and I think it's a great return. I just could have done without some of the negative aspects of it. But that's a great starting point. Even though you bypassed someone else's triumphant return in front of 80,000 people.
Again, we're going back, front, side to side, all this stuff, because this is what the reflection
from back to front. That's interesting that you bring that.
No, I do side to side because you gotta sand the floor. It's everything. Karate Kid, sand the floor, paint the fence.
Slap your ass cheeks away. What are you doing?
You do the Mr. Miyagi toilet bowl cleaning. But anyway, neither here nor there. But see, there you go. Paint the fence. But this is what the pro wrestling reflection is all about. We don't chronologicalize it because TW always has a harangue and gives me every venture from every decade. But neither here nor there. So with that being said, we talk about CM Punk a little bit. Let's talk about an Angle return. And TW kind of hinted on it, and it happened at the Hoosier Dome. It happened at WrestleMania 8. Hulk Hogan was defending his title he wasn't defending his title. He was double main eventing it against Sid Vicious, aka Sid Justice. And of course, Papa Shango comes out.
Papa Shango.
It was a 2-on-1. Bobby Heenan, if you watched it on pay-per-view, Bobby Heenan said the best line ever. He doesn't have a friend in the world. And then you hear the music. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. And in front of 50, 60,000 people at the Hoosier Dome, who comes running down with, it's the perfect scenario of a rundown. It was the Ultimate Warrior. He was 20 pounds lighter, but that was because of the steroids. And of course, the legalities about that, TW, we don't have to go into that. But again, shorter hair, but I can abbreviate it for the Reflectionites. Remember, he held WWF hostage at SummerSlam 91. He wanted the money, he got the money, and then he got fired. He also had issues with steroids, and of course, Vince McMahon on a PR blitz had that drug program. So Ultimate Warrior had to lose 20 pounds and get the steroids out of his system. But neither here nor there. But this was the best return for the Ultimate Warrior. He did a couple of more, but it did not have the same cachet. It did not have the same feeling until maybe when he was getting inducted to the Hall of Fame in 2014, where the people, with the nostalgic, we love you, we respect you, we remembered you, and all that stuff. But I want to hone in on the 92 because we knew Hogan was kind of semi-retiring. We knew Hogan was, he had the steroid issues himself, so he had to stay away. So the Ultimate Warrior was going to be given the torch to go against Sid Justice, to go against Papa Shango, and all that stuff. But at least for one night, TW, he got a moment in front of 60,000 people at the Hoosier Dome. The people remembered him, and the people wanted him. What say you about the Ultimate Warrior returning for WrestleMania 8 and 1992?
It's my number one favorite WrestleMania moment was that. And I've told the story on here before. Two of my best friends, we call ourselves the Warriors to this day, and there's other guys that are a part of the Warriors. One of my best friends, Dennis and Bob, who I would try to get them to go to wrestling shows, and they were adamant they had never been live, and they said they would never ever go to a wrestling show live unless the Warrior was on it. When that dude's music hit, now that was a good secret. That was before the internet, before everything was ruined. The rag sheets, Meltzer might have been telling people in the rag sheets, but I ain't never been one to send that guy money to get one. So when that music hit, you had 3 18-year-old dudes look at each other. No, we jumped up from our seats, looked at each other, and all three of us were jumping around, hugging each other. Pretty sure those two cried. I didn't. And I was like, holy shit. And then we knew it was the Warrior right away. There was rumors that he died, and that was a body double, and someone else took his place. It's always been one Warrior. It's never not been the same guy, Jim Hellwig. It is hands down as far as feelings, like how you felt in a moment. And my second favorite is Eddie Guerrero and Benoit. No, we're not supposed to talk about him. When they had their moment, that's my second favorite moment, is that, because that's two dudes that came up together. They're holding 2 respective world titles at the end of the night at WrestleMania. That's a great moment too. It's the heartstrings, but that Warrior comeback, and it didn't last long. So my question for you is, was it the Hogan Warrior Sergeant Slaughter Mustafa match that he held him up?
Yeah, SummerSlam 91.
So that was after he lost the belt.
Yeah.
So when he fought Macho Man at Wembley that later that year, was
technically forgiven, and that's why he got his second chance.
Wasn't he world champion?
No.
That was not a world title match?
It was, but he wasn't the champion. Savage was the champion.
Oh, and he didn't win it. He won by count out.
Savage won by count out.
Savage won?
I think so.
And then it was the year later that he got Savage reinstated to be his partner at Ultimate Maniacs. And
that's the same year.
Right. But that's when he got fired. It was right after that.
Yeah, he got fired in 91. And
Mr. Perfect
came back in 92, and then got fired again by Survivor Series 92 because he held him up for more dates.
Weekend Warrior didn't want to wrestle during the week.
Neither here nor there, but again, he had his moment in the Sun Reflectionites. He did it in front of 60,000 people. And again, he was given the ball, but he did not score a touchdown, TW. So we can say that. But for that one moment and clotheslining Papa Shango, aka the Godfather, over the top rope, didn't touch Sid Vicious. But again, that was supposed to be the prelude for the house show matches. But again, that's neither here nor there. That's logistics. So, you know what? Let's go springboard a little bit, because you've always talked about this. And since it is a debut/return, let's go back to a debut. Now, 2016 Royal Rumble Reflectionites. This man was deemed the hottest free agent, according to Michael Cole. But at the Royal Rumble, he was the number 3 entrant. Nobody knew the music. But when everybody looked at the Titantron, it said 3 words. I am phenomenal. Everybody knew it. And it was AJ Styles, who was the number 3 entrant, a surprise entrant for the Royal Rumble. And of course, Roman Reigns had that like doofus look on his face, like, who the hell is this? You know, he was selling the fact that he didn't know AJ Styles was in the building. But again, it was one of the quote unquote worst kept secrets because we knew that AJ Styles was on his way to the WWE. But again, I'll say this, TW, on the fandom scale, I think it was more debatable at that point. Was he going to get a pop? Was he going to get a high reaction? Because, you know, TNA, he was the big shark in a little pond. And of course, he went all around the world. He went to New Japan. He became the heavyweight champion, was in Ring of Honor. And of course, you know, he was still a big shark, but a lot of people say that's a small pond, especially Ring of Honor. It's still a small pond. New Japan was a big lake, you could say, but it's overseas. But he was building a rep. But the question among the American fans, and of course for me, I was on the fence, CW. I'll be honest with you. I said I don't know if the fans. I'm not going to say the fans won't know who he is. I just don't know if Vince McMahon will get the reaction that he wanted because he paid him all this money to get the pop. And I was wrong. He got a huge pop in Orlando. 10, 15,000 people knew who he was, and it was all worth it. And he's still been there to this day, 7 years. So if he retires or goes to AEW, I'm not going to be mad at that, but he's had a stellar run in WWE since that debut in 2000.
He's probably the guy that removed the stigma that they won't push guys that aren't homegrown, right? So, But of course it didn't remove the stigma because fucking internet wrestling fans have short memories. They immediately think everyone's going to get buried and all that stuff. But he got a huge pop. I didn't know there was only 15,000 people there. The risk of coming out somewhere other than WrestleMania is a WrestleMania crowd, even though it's massive, it's wrestling fans from all around the world. It's diehards. So you're guaranteed to have people know who someone is regardless. Unlike AEW, where that dude attacked Orange Cassidy and everyone around me is going, who the fuck is that guy? Kyler Wheeler or some shit from New Japan, IWGP.
Kyle Fletcher. You even tweeted me. You
like, who the hell is that guy?
Who is that? And I'm like, that's a guy from New Japan.
Yeah, you said, I think that's the guy from New Japan. Oh, no, did you tell me he was in the tag team, or did I watch the show back?
I said it was a tag team from New Japan. Yeah, I said it was off the open.
So him coming out, and AJ, someone I never liked, right? I didn't dislike him like CM Punk, where I legitimately just didn't think he was a good human. I just never was into AJ. But the dude went and reinvented the wheel. And I would say he's the prototype for the guy who's running shit right now in WWE, who's the top guy. Because that guy left Impact. I think he grew his hair out somewhat on Impact before. But the guy in New Japan that came to WWE is not even remotely the same guy that was Impact World Champion. Like he looked like a little kid there, like a high school quarterback.
In Impact, the hair was small. New Japan, he was starting to grow it out like Justin Bieber, and then now in WWE, it's the soccer mom look, but he
looks like X-Pac. Like X-Pac to me. But I have been such an AJ. He's to me the best guy. I'm happy to see him back. I hope that injury maybe makes him stick around a little longer, because he said when his contract's up, he's retiring. He's going home to his family. But he said he might want to be an agent or the school trainer kind of thing. But I hope he gives it another run, because he got that missed time or whatever. But he's every time I see him in the ring, I think to myself, as little as he looked in Impact, like size-wise, he never looks small to me in WWE because he's a star. And that's like, Finn Balor is a fucking star when he's the Demon. When he's not the Demon, he looks like J.D. McGunna or whatever the hell his name is. But when you have that aura to you, but now I think because of Judgment Day, Finn Balor is also a star, and it doesn't matter how big he is. And then the more guys you have like Roman, who's going to bump for AJ, who's going to bump for Finn, that less people give a shit about size anymore. So I give AJ credit. That debut was phenomenal. pun intended. And it within months, he was the world champion and feuding with John Cena. You can't ask for more. And I believe he was a Grand Slam champion. He has a poster you can buy from the shop that he's a Grand Slam champion. He's got to bring his friends in and be with him on TV. New gear. He's grateful. Like you don't ever hear a bad word.
He's very humble. He's very
humble for sure.
He's very family oriented.
He's a very Christian based man, and he walks the walk. And he's somebody that if I had sons, if they looked up to him, I'd be happy that he'd be the guy they chose.
And again, once again, Reflectionists, I'm glad I was wrong. I was concerned more. It's not about the push. I was not.
I had a concern for a different guy.
No. But anyway, I just wanted to let's put a bow on this. I was only concerned because again, the pop. I was concerned for the pop. Would it? Again, we just talked about it with you.
It would have made him sink or swim right there.
Because if the pop wasn't big enough, it didn't garner the reaction that Vince hoped for, then we would not have gotten Styles and Cena at Royal Rumble. One of the best matches in Cena's career was against AJ Styles because AJ Styles makes everybody look like $1 million. So, but it took that way. Yeah, you always talk about that. But anyway, AJ Styles needed that pop, and the result is a 7-year career already. That's Hall of Fame-ish right now for WWE purposes. So you said something that kind of like you was concerned on a different scale, or
so you're worried about him legitimately, like you should be worried about him.
Right.
The guy I was worried coming out to no pop is stupid that I would have thought he didn't have a pop, but that's the machine, and sometimes even though that YWC drives me fucking nuts every now and again, they get me caught up in some of that stuff. And the guy I thought was going to come out to possibly no reaction was Cody.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Let's talk about Cody coming back at WrestleMania in Dallas, Texas. Again, not a big secret, Reflectionites.
Right.
But he came back.
But I'll believe it when I see it.
But he came back as Seth Rollins' secret opponent. And WWE did the smart thing by giving him the AEW entrance where he came up, elevated up from the elevator, the stage elevator. And then the 50, 60,000 that was at Texas Stadium. I forget what it's called, but you know what I'm talking about. It was Dallas, Texas. AT&T Stadium. They remember who Cody Rhodes is. Vince McMahon was smart enough for that. I don't want to really talk about Cody because that's a little bit too present, but I understand where you're going with that. There was no concern because, again, like you said, it's an international crowd. It's a very IWC, YWC oriented.
But I didn't think he'd get that pop. I thought he'd get a pop, but not that pop.
Oh, no, I was not concerned about that because, again, there's a difference right now because I could talk about the difference between AJ and Cody. There was no AEW in 2016.
Right.
So there is a concern there. I'm not concerned here because there is this thing that you already know that I say a lot. The word is tribalism. I was not afraid of people trying to boo Cody out of the building. They were not going to allow it. It was not going to happen. It was going to be a pop because I think for WWE fans, they wanted to prove a point to AEW fans. Not only welcome home, but you lost a superstar.
Right.
You lost a pillar. You lost a top draw. They wanted to prove AEW fans more wrong than ever. So I was never concerned about that.
So here, just to talk about something real quick, you said WWE was smart to do. Cody told them, listen, I want my own music. I want my same entrance. I want my same gear. And they said to him, Cody, everything that you're doing right now is what we want you to do here because the shit works. Just bring everything. Whatever you want to do, bring it. Whatever you've been doing. And that's what they've done. And he, in this last year, obviously he was hurt for some of it.
Mm-hmm.
That dude on live TV in Jacksonville said, hey, guys, I spent a lot of the quarantine time here with you guys, and we made some memories. The guy is persona non grata. He can do no wrong there. And it's beautiful to see. And I think he knows it. And I think they know they have to let him do it because that's how you're getting Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks to come there, is because they're watching to see how Cody is being used. And the fact that he references everything.
We're not going to go there. We're not going to.
I'm just saying,
just blur that out. We're just going to. focus on the people. But I understand where you're going.
Comeback is one that's so much bigger. That's why I'm glad you at least let me talk about it. The way he left, the way he started AEW, he should be CM Punk, never ever coming back on the band name list, all that. Him coming back is he bet on himself and won. You know what I mean? And so it's I'm not gonna lie, I was skeptical. I thought, okay, he's gonna get this big pomp and circumstance, he's gonna lose to Seth. He didn't. Then he beat him 2 more times and he got hurt. And now it's like, yeah, he's doing great. He lost to Roman. Everyone's still pissing their pants about it. It was perfect. And the way he didn't win that belt tournament is perfect. So go on to the next one. I just think it's that. I just watched the Air movie, right? Michael Jordan. And when, I don't know if you saw it or not, but there was something the mom wanted in the contract that made him pick Nike over Adidas because he was Team Adidas through and through. That thing that he got in the contract, and I'm not going to tell you because then it kind of ruins a plot point. And obviously everyone knows he went with Nike, so I didn't ruin anything there. But the guy who gave it to him laid there, and the next day when the other guy told him, he goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Doing forgiveness. What do you call that shit? Meditation." He goes, "What are you forgiving yourself for?" He goes, "Because we might have just set a precedent that's going to have to be included in everybody else's deal from here going on." So it was something like, this is the situation with Cody. He's getting so much of what he asked for.
This is the parameters of a return. This is my way or the highway. To
get somebody of value like a Kenny and the Bucks and whoever,
you got to give. But
I think it's paid off because I think Cody's gotten them what they wanted him to get them. Some new eyeballs, some new seats getting filled. Merchandise is clearly selling. I bought about $3,000 of it myself. Just got that shirt with him planting the flag. I'm going to wear it to SummerSlam. But absolutely, it was. We can't talk about comebacks and not at least include them. And I didn't know we talked this long about them, but I think it's a significant comeback.
But again, it's debuts, it's returns. Every parameter of this special spotlight has to be acknowledged, Reflectionites. So, again, we're going to try to give as many as we can. So I'm going to give one for myself. And this was a very humbling comeback for me in 1999 because, again, when you're an ECW mark, Reflectionites, and TW, again, he didn't watch ECW, and he's repented and he understands how wrong he was for not watching ECW. But as an ECW fan, when certain people left ECW, we felt dejected. We felt pissed. We felt betrayed and all that stuff. Again, that's Paul Heyman, feeding that into our brains, and we were cult-like about it. And I'm not ashamed to say that. One of the people that left for the money, for guaranteed money. Of course, I understand this years later, TW. So don't get me started on that. I understand the logistics and the business. If the check clears, you go somewhere where the check clears and you can feed your family. But again, I was a fan. I was young and dumb. But when this man left to go to WCW, they changed his name. He meant nothing to them. But I'm just glad that the check's cleared. They called him Hack. I puked when I heard that name, Hack. I hated his matches on WCW.
That's Sandman. I completely forgot that.
But when Eric Bischoff didn't know what to do with him and all that mismanagement happened, Hack quit WCW and Paul Heyman brought him back. And in August of 1999, TW, the lights went out in ECW. And the Impact players were beating down Tommy Dreamer and Raven. It looked like they were going to be sent to the hospital. They're going to be injured and all that stuff. But once the lights went out, everybody was like, well, who the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? But we did hear we heard some rumblings with the 900 numbers. Sandman quit WCW. So we were like, is he coming back? Is he coming back? Is he coming back? And when the lights went on, Sandman was at the podium, at the stage, at the Eagle's Nest. Had a beer coming out, and then when we heard Metallica, oh God, we all creamed in our pants. I have to say this. I hate to say this. We all creamed in our pants that the Sandman is back, and people think that do people think that Chris Jericho started people singing the Judas No, ECW fans were singing Metallica Enter the Sandman way before people were singing Judas. But again, that's my little rant, TW. But Sandman was on the Eagle's Nest. He soaked
I was singing the Mounties music even before that.
Well, there you go. But I just want to say this. We were soaking it all in. We was enjoying the ambiance. We was happy. We could say this. Our hero is home, where he belongs. I didn't care about, again, I'm not talking about his money issues. I'm not talking about the check clearing. I understand having a family. You got to do what you got to do, TW. But for that one moment, he was back home, and I popped. The fans popped. 300 people in ECW sounded like 60,000 people at AT&T Stadium.
That's some of the best crowds of wrestling in front of are 300 diehards.
Right. So
you got 30,000. If 20,000 are in the bathroom or sitting on their hands.
And we can nitpick like Sandman took too long to get to the ring to save Tommy Dreamer and Raven. I could say that. It's funny right now, but we didn't care. The number one thing we can nitpick is it's a surprise save, yet they play ring music. Mm-hmm. That alone takes the surprise off because like, oh, the Warrior must be coming. Even it was a 100-yard dash to get down there. It was a whole football field, and bingo hall is probably not that big, but still. But I'm sure they stood there looking at him going, oh shit, and stopped beating up Tommy Dreamer for the moment. But right. He's a guy that the modern version of him, not character. I told my buddy while I was there at the show last week, Orange Cassidy, Sammy Guevara, Jungle Boy, and there's one other one. Those guys should never ever leave AEW. They're never gonna be as high as they are now anywhere else. Maybe Impact, but you know what I mean. Like going to the WWE would be a mistake for all of them. They're way too small. They're way too. There's AEW guys. There's ECW guys. There's WWE guys who
and Sandman worked in ECW in a way that he was never going to work anywhere else. And when you said Hack, I went, that's fuck. I didn't mean to ruin your mojo, but I'm like, he wasn't WCW was Hack. It was even I knew who the fuck he was, and I'm like, what? And it's like, but I think it was because of copyright. That was why they couldn't call him Sandman. I
don't care why they call him that.
It was a comic. I think it was McFarlane's comic book.
But at the end of the day, it's the same thing like a lot of people say. Like you just said, there's AEW guys that shouldn't go to WWE because they won't be booked right or they won't.
But no, but there's nothing wrong with how they're being used now. Stay there. If you get paid, stay there. You're living the dream.
But again, I didn't know about the Paul Heyman, dodging checks and dodging the IRS. And again, I understand that now. But Sandman was an ECW guy. Sandman with the cane, the cigarettes, and the Budweisers. I don't know about if it was Bud Lights, but again, neither here nor there, Reflectionites.
I see yours in the back over there. You got 3 cases of it?
Bud Lights were good. I don't know. It just tastes like Coke. It's like a Coke classic.
Fucking urine. It's not good.
Man, you know what? It's like remember that movie with Woody Harrelson and Bill Murray, the bowling movie Kingpin?
Kingpin.
Remember that guy on the porch said, "Did you ever drink your own piss?" So okay, that's Bud Light. So what's the difference? There you go.
And it's other beers too. It's not just Bud Light.
But anyway, but I just wanted to give my special moment because during the 90s, during the Monday Night Wars, and during when everybody was watching WWF, WCW, and ECW because they all had something in common at that point, TW, with the Monday Night Wars. You did not know who was going where because you knew they were all interconnected in some way, shape, or form. It just worked out that way. So that was a special time in the Monday Night Wars. And I want to say this. A man during the Monday Night Wars made 2 returns in 2 different companies. Mm-hmm. That man's name, and I said it to begin the show, is JEWF. JARRETT. Not only did he do a return to WCW in 1996, but he did a return to WWF in 1997, and then did a return to WCW Monday Nitro at 1999. So TW, Jeff Jarrett knows how to do the returns. He knows how to do the debuts. Now, again, was the pop big in front of 10,000 people? I could say no.
He's always a heel, though. It's hard to get a pop when you're the heel.
That's why I want to talk about Jeff Jarrett for a second, because most of his returns or debuts is in a heelish role. So you're not going to get the pop of, yeah. But Jeff Jarrett got a different reaction, which is, oh, shit, he's here. Oh. Right. So what say you about the heel aspect of a return or a debut? Because, again, you're not getting the pop, but you're hoping to get some sort of reaction. So what say you about the Jeff Jarrett?
Back then, good luck. Now that you could be the guy who burned pictures of Jesus. If you show up on another company's show, you're getting a pop. Because of your tribalism, right?
Right.
So who's the most hated guy? If Roman Reigns walked out in AEW, that fucking roof would explode. There's no doubt about it. And I don't know. I hate to use Dean Ambrose as the example the other way because
he could go back to WWE and people.
But he has a history there, so it would be a familiarity thing. AEW's never had Roman Reigns, so I think the only guy. There you go. I almost went with the other one. I almost went with that guy. Oh, you can't see him. And in 2024, when this guy walks out on a fucking WWE show, it is going to blow up cameras. It's going to get a reaction.
We don't know that, but let's just focus on the Monday Night Wars.
It would happen, and he's the #1 heel in their company. Yeah. He would be cheered, and you would get a holy shit chant the second he walked out.
Now, for Jeff Jarrett, let's go back to Jeff Jarrett because in 1996, he returned or debuted in WCW after leaving WWF. He was technically a tweener, but he was kind of like a tweener good guy because he was for tradition. He hated the NWO and all that stuff, and of course, he wanted to be a full horseman. But like you said, people knew who Jeff Jarrett was, so he did not get the big 10,000 screaming pop, you could say, the 10,000 screaming fan pop per se, but he was a name recognition. So, Eric Bischoff got a return, so to speak, on his investment. 1997, he came back with a grievance against Eric Bischoff. So, of course, Vince McMahon wanted him back. Of course, he needed faces and he needed, whatever. He needed anybody who wanted to get away from the guaranteed money from Bischoff. So, of course, Jeff Jarrett is a businessman and he's a traditionalist. So he took the money and went with it. But the fans, again, with the Monday Night Wars and, of course, Stone Cold Steve Austin, no one's going to beat Austin. No one's going to beat an Austin Pop in 1997 TW. Let's be real. I'm realistic there. But, of course, Jeff Jarrett is a name. Now, 1999, I will say this. I think it was the biggest pop as a heel. He still had his WWE look. He had the guitar. So all people were like, oh, shit, that's Jeff Jarrett. And, of course, he was on a pay-per-view on WWF on a Sunday, and then 24 hours later, debuted on
That was after the China match, right?
Yeah, that was after the China match. So he debuted or re-debuted on Nitro 24 hours later and made up Impact, smashing the guitar over Buff Bagwell's head. Again, I'm just trying to give you the logistics. But I think, to me, in my humble opinion, 1999, Jeff Jarrett got the biggest pop for the biggest reason because I think most people looked at him and said,
there was no lag. It's boom, boom.
Yeah, it was again, oh shit, he was there 24 hours ago. Now he's invading back. So he got the kind of pop and he got the kind of reaction I think Jeff Jarrett was looking for, but he knew that he needed to leave WWF because he already reached his ceiling. So he knew that getting this chance at WCW, I think he even knew he was going to become a heavyweight champion. So let's put a bow on Jeff Jarrett. What say you about Jeff Jarrett's decisions of leaving one company and coming back? And all that stuff?
He's another. He's Teflon Don. That guy, I don't know, because if you hear stories of people not liking that guy, right? Like, I don't know how the dude's laugh is infectious. Like, I think I would have just a shit ton of good times hanging out with that guy, right? So, but he's got a good mind for the business. He's got a good mind for like promotion, not just the matches and wrestling in them. He probably has a good eye for talent. But for some reason, this guy, I remember at the time I was wrestling and I'm like, man, this guy fucking changed his company. You'd think they both would want nothing to do with him because he was loyal to neither. But it was like hot potato, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think when he left the second time had a lot more to do with Owen. Like, he just couldn't be there no more, right? Because it was 99, and that wrecked a lot.
When he left the second time, it was the Owen thing, and of course, money. Everything is always
going to be money. But I'm saying being there without Owen hurts way more than being somewhere else without Owen, because nothing's going to be reminding you of him. You know what I mean? Like, it's a whole new situation. But the only guy that comes close for the same timeline, and it was because it was recorded, is Luger. He shows up on Monday night, the very first Nitro, after being on Superstars or Challenge on Sunday. And then the guy that beats them both is Rick Rude, who was the one I thought you were going to talk about, because you said he was on both companies, and he was on Raw and Nitro on the same night. So those are three pretty significant things, because even Scott Hall, he got jobbed out at the Royal Rumble or whatever.
No, it was In Your House against Vader, and then...
But then he was off TV for 3 months before he showed up there.
Well, not 3 months, three weeks. He was on TV. Trust me. Trust the professor.
But no, that's what I'm saying. I was telling you a different thing. He jobbed out at Royal Rumble, and then they kept him off TV. Then they brought him back for that match against Vader, and then lost. And then it was only a few weeks. But that's what they used to do when your contract was coming up, and you didn't re-sign. The last 3 months you were there. The first month, you lost to everybody, and then the next 2 months, you were not on TV. You did house shows, but that was it.
But the fans will never let, the fans don't devalue you when you leave. The fans actually up your stock.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
There you go. So with Scott Hall, returning to WCW after the Diamond Stud incidents and the Gator Scott Hall. Again, Reflectionites, we're going to name some names because, again, I don't want to make this a 5-hour podcast because there's too many. But Scott Hall's a great example. What they did to him, what Vince did to him, meant shit. Because once he made his debut as Scott Hall himself, Memorial Day weekend on Nitro, that was a different type of pop. That was an oh shit pop. He's here. No one said, who's that? Everybody knew. They wasn't saying, that's Razor. Razor's here. Razor's here. And when Kevin Nash made his re-debut or return to WCW a couple of weeks later as Scott Hall's big mystery man.
Yeah, they didn't call him names for like 3 weeks.
They didn't call him names, but every fan was saying, oh shit, that's Diesel. Diesel! That's all you need. That's the pop you needed in the 90s during the Monday Night Wars. So that's a good thing. So I want to try to I want to do one more, and then we're going to put a bow on everything else, TW, all right? So I want to give you your credence because during the 80s, most of the returns, Reflectionites, and I'll try to explain this as best as I can, the best way in the territories / WWF and NWA days for returns were injury angles. So when somebody beats you down, somebody, they could beat you with a cane, they put a chair to your leg and all this stuff, Reflectionites. I'm just giving you a hypothesis on this. Of course, you got the leg injury, you got to be taken to the hospital. But, TW, you and I know, when you did an injury angle, you was not off for like 2 weeks. You was off for months. Now, I'm going to use two different examples of a great return. One was Roddy Piper in 1986. Now, logistically speaking, in 1986, he was filming a movie, Body Slam. But they had to get him away. So how do you do that? Adorable Adrian Adonis and Bob Orton and Don Morocco beat the shit out of him, took a cane.
Piper style.
And they took a chair, went after his legs, and he was out for months. And you believed it because there was no rag sheets and no dirt sheets. So another example on the NWA side, because you kept mounting on this, is Ricky Morton. He got the shit kicked out of him by Arn Anderson, Ole Anderson, Tully Blanchard, and Ric Flair because Ricky Morton was one of those tag teams, as TW so eloquently always says, would be the one to challenge Ric Flair on a Great American Bash tour date, you could say, on a Saturday night. But he was going to be a number one contender, and you can believe it. And he was over like Rover. So TW, a couple of months later after, and I'll go back to Piper for a second, a couple months after, filming Body Slam, it was like about I think it was about 3 or 4 months, you could say, but they played it off well because on TV, adorable Adrian Adonis had the flower shop. He was doing interviews and all that stuff. And lo and behold, there was no music, TW, no bagpipes were playing. He just came out and tore the set up of the flower shop and beat the shit out of adorable Adrian Adonis and said the war just begun. And of course, TW, Ricky Morton, I think they did the broken nose angle with Ricky Morton. So he was not out for months. He was out for weeks, but they played it off beautifully. And I think he came back with a mask, if I'm not mistaken. And
Cody Rhodes mask, the handsome Cody Rhodes.
And he beat the shit out of Ric Flair. He beat the shit out of Tully Blanchard, Arn Anderson, Ole Anderson. And of course, the Rock and Roll Express got their heat back. And of course, we were raring to go. On one side, we were raring to go for Piper against adorable Adrian. On the other side, we were raring to go with Ricky Morton against Ric Flair. So what say you about the injury angle storyline injury angle to make a return even better? What say
First
you,
and foremost, not that you need me to tell you that Ricky Morton has wrestling in his veins, because the dude probably wrestled last night somewhere at fucking 80. But it's like a thing of legends. Like you've heard it once, you've heard it a million times. I don't know if it's just in wrestling circles or if it's in the magazines, because it's definitely breaking kayfabe. When he was being beaten up, he told them, hit me. And he had a black eye from Arn's fist. And then when he got in the back, he took sandpaper and scuffed up his head so that when he came out to do the promo, that there was a scab. There was scabbing and everything there, because it might have been gimmick blood. I don't know if it was gimmick blood or real blood, but he did that with the sandpaper. And so when he came out, he had a black eye. He had scuff marks from. That's why he did the sandpaper. They rubbed his face on the concrete. That's what they were doing. So he went in the back and rubbed up his face with sandpaper so that it looked like his face got rubbed on concrete. And everyone's like, Ricky, you don't want to do that. And he's like, I'm doing it. And his return, I've never seen it on video. I've tried looking for it. Today I didn't. I was gonna.
Josh Floberg, TN Coupon,
yes,
maybe you can find it for TW and tweet it to his Twitter.
But I've had people describe it to me, and it just sounds like, man, it's like the thing dreams of man. And I picture every crowd 60,000 people, but it was one of them Omni shows where Superstars is on in the daytime and trying to get you to go to, or not Superstars, but Saturday night, and you're supposed to go to the Omni later that day, and they said the lights went out. And then everyone's like cigarette lighters came on.
Oh, then there's the house show. We'll never find it.
It's the slow version of Here I Go Again by Whitesnake. Like where the beginning's slow and then it gets to the part where it goes, da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, and he came out and just stood there. And they said the place, it was like standing ovation. Everyone went bananas for like 5 minutes. And then he ran out and fought Flair. He probably lost by disqualification or won by disqualification. But it was a pretty, and like, I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of these debuts we talked about were people just coming back to a company. This was an injury angle, and those were, Steamboat had one where he got DDT'd by Jake the Snake, and he was out for months. I don't know what he was doing while he was out.
No,
he came back.
Not that one. You're talking about Steamboat and Savage. Savage with the
belt.
Yeah, the bell to the throat.
Yeah, but Jake the Snake DDT Ricky Steamboat on the kind of moved the pad.
But it didn't have the same impact and lasting for. He was out for weeks.
Yeah,
and that wasn't a planned injury. That wasn't a planned injury with him and Jake the Snake. Macho Man and Steamboat, that was planned to carry over. So I get what you're saying. I just want to give you the logistics.
But some of the injury angles are the best injury comeback of all time, and it was a legit injury. You mentioned it earlier, and again, I know you want to wrap it up, but I'm just saying there's so many. But this is a legit injury angle, and this guy was supposed to be out for a year, and he shows up as number 30 in Boston and won the Royal Rumble. It was John Cena.
Madison Square Garden.
Was it Square Garden? I thought it was Boston. So he shows up and just stood there, and the place went insane. And it was torn tricep, and he healed in 3 months, and they thought he was going to be out a year. And he won the Royal Rumble. And I remember thinking, he probably just thought it was a safe match. He'll do the Royal Rumble, and then he'll take another 3-6 months off. Nope. He was back full time after that. And then on that one. But yes, Piper's, I completely forgot about that. That's how they turned him good guy, too. Because he kind of was already a good guy because the Bret Hart thing with the, I think the IC belt. But like the whole "I liked you as a kid, I knew your daddy," and then drop the belt back to him. But yeah, the injury comebacks are like, especially as a kid, they're awesome because you want them to come back and whoop the person's ass who injured them, and that's why you're happy for it.
Another injury angle we could talk about for a second. Again, like I said, Reflectionites, this could be a 5-hour show, so I'm going to try to abbreviate it as best. Started the first ever Starrcade, Flair for the gold. How? Because Ric Flair returned from an injury angle thanks to Harley Race, thanks to Dick Slater, thanks to Bob Orton, who were the mercenaries that Harley Race paid $10,000 to eliminate Ric Flair. I think they did the pile driver on the chair. I think it was a neck injury and all that stuff. But Ric Flair was out for about a couple of, like 2 or 3 months before the November Thanksgiving pay-per-view or special event, you could say, TW. But they did an injury angle. They gave him some time off, and he returned with the neck brace, and he returned as Batman. So I just wanted to give credence to what you're talking about with the injury angle. And, of course, the fans popped for for Ric Flair coming back. So what say you, TW, about Ric Flair? Because
that's
his injury angle, that's pre-Horseman, but his injury angle was a prelude to what would become a tradition of pay-per-views for Starrcade. Would that be a success? Hell yeah, that was a success. That, at the Charlotte Memorial College, or was it Greensboro Memorial Coliseum? The highway shut down because of Ric Flair versus Harley Race. So it meant something. So that injury angle meant something for people to go down to Greensboro and sell out that building. So what say you tell me about that?
You mentioned Roddy Piper, man. That dude will tell you every time he talked. That guy had people throwing batteries at him, trying to stab him in the parking lot. The Southern fan, dude, you do an injury angle down there, you better get the street shut down so you can get out of town, because them people wanted your ass, man. They worship wrestling down there, man. It was that and Friday Night Lights. That's what the South was all about, wrestling and football. And I that's all before my time. Obviously, that's you looking back at history, because I mean, before your time too. I'm 10. You must be 7 in '83. So, but it's funny. The reason I brought up the Horseman thing is it almost comes across as if you can't beat them, join them, and then Flair does the same tactics as the heel champion that Harley Race did to him, which makes him easier to hate. Like, dude, you hated it when people did it to you, and now you're doing it to people. And he says, yeah, because it works. I don't think they ever did that, but that's what he could say, is it works. I'm
going to do one more, TW. And then
better be the one that I think it is, because we cannot not talk about the one of the biggest ones ever.
Well, you'll talk about this, because I want to say this. You're going to give your one more. I'm going to give my one more, because this one more is actually it precedes yours because of how big it was. 1984, Reflectionites. This was a return, but there was two I'm not going to say a problem, but there was two variables that Vince McMahon Jr. had to overcome. He had to overcome the Madison Square Garden audience. And I'm going to explain why. Because when Bob Backlund lost the belt to the Iron Sheik, Vince McMahon Jr. knew he did not want Bob Backlund to become a 2-time champion. He had a vision. And that vision was in Minnesota. And that vision needed to come back to New York. And in 1984, Vince McMahon solved two problems at once. He got Bob Backlund to co-sign for his return and say he's legit and he's a good guy. And in 1984, TW, Hulk Hogan came back to the WWF as a good guy. Bob Backlund made sure that the fans knew that he was a good guy, that he turned his ways. He's not going to be influenced by demons and devils and all that stuff. He was straight shooting. He was an All-American. And if it wasn't for Bob Backlund's endorsement, to a degree, I'm not saying that it would have mattered, but to a degree, Bob Backlund kind of gave the Godfather seal of approval. He's a friend of ours. It allowed Vince McMahon Jr. to do what he did, and for the vision that WWE would become thanks to Hulkamania. So I wanted to give credence, because that is one of the biggest returns ever, because it changed the landscape of professional wrestling forever.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here. So TW, you want to talk about it, or you?
There's another thing about that I used to notice it all the time in all the toys, so McMahon has people writing music, so he doesn't have to pay rights for songs and stuff like that. When Edge came back and he used Rob Zombie's music, that was a trade. We'll let you use our song, but you got to let us use Edge in the video. And so that wasn't a paid thing, and then he kept it for a long time. Anyway, one thing that they also had to do for Hogan, and I thought you were going to say this was one of the two things they had to get over, they had to pay Marvel to call him Hulk Hogan. Every WWE product with Hulk Hogan's name on it said copyright Marvel Comics Group. And so that's a pretty big investment. I don't know how much you had to pay Marvel at the time. They were almost bankrupt. That might be a dark side of the ring.
He was called the Incredible Hulk Hogan first. Right. He wasn't called the Real American. So I understand where you're going with that.
Yeah, but even if it said just Hulk, they had to pay Marvel. And so that's a pretty big investment. I think they got their money's worth. What do you think?
Absolutely. They're $9 billion later in 2020 press. You better goddamn believe it was a great investment. And now, to put a bow on it, TW will close with the return that he wants to talk about for a long time. And it happened in 2017 in front of 70 or 80,000 in Tampa, Florida. It was another worst kept secret. So the floor is yours.
No, that one was a good secret. I mean, the night before they were wrestling for Ring of Honor.
That's why we knew.
Right? But no, that gave us
trust the IWC.
How about that?
There you go. Thank you very much. Go ahead, TW.
I'll never forget it as long as I live, because New Day hosted. It was done so beautifully that you just at some point forgot all about them. And then when the New Day came out and said, "You got 3 tag teams out there. We think you need one more," and went who, and everyone and their brother thought it was going to be Kofi and Xavier, and then that one note hit, and these dudes came out, and it was absolutely goosebump city. It was so awesome that to this day, 6 years later, when I watch it, I can remember how I felt. I felt good for them. I didn't care, you know what I mean? And I don't mean that in a bad way. I've never been a big Hardy Boys guy. But for them to have that moment after however long they'd been gone, and they were the belt collectors. They were the ones champions. I think they lost the Impact belts a week before that, Ring of Honor, and then all that. So when that music hit, it was deafening in your house. So I can only imagine how loud it was. I think that was in Dallas too, wasn't it?
Tampa. It was either Tampa or Orlando.
It was absolutely insane. And both of them looked extremely grateful. And just to think of the road that Jeff Hardy was on to come back there for that. And he's the one that stuck around longer, you know? But it was, to me, it's my third favorite WrestleMania moment, which is saying something because I wasn't a fan of theirs. You know what I mean? Like, I appreciate them. That's why I have their figures. But that's probably the reason they're in my Hall of Fame, is because you cannot deny their contribution to the wrestling business. And I hope this last run, that's like 3 years going, the kiss of wrestling, I hope it's a good one. And I hope, they will become
they were supposed to be AEW Tag Team Champions. They will be AEW Tag Team Champions probably by the end of this calendar year. But for 2017 purposes, it was a nice pop, no doubt about it. But again, it was the worst kept secret because, again, I was under the dirt sheets. I already knew I was involved in Twitter.
It was talked about, but people weren't sure because they were wrestling for Ring of Honor the night before.
No, yeah, the night before. But the question was they going to win the ladder match? They lost to the Bucks, so we already said, all right, they're coming. That was it. It was a moot point. But I understand that you weren't convinced, but the professor was totally convinced. Billy Ray was totally convinced, and 8-Track Brown was totally convinced they were going to be there. And of course, I'm not going to say I was saying like, oh, I knew this was going to happen. I was like, oh yeah, finally, yes, they're here. And they won the WWE Tag Team titles on their first night back in 2017 at the Fatal 4-Way for the Tag Team titles. So with that being said, we close. I hope we gave you examples. And if we forgot some, please leave it on the Pro Wrestling Reflection Facebook fan page. Leave your comments if this gets uploaded by 8-Track Brown on the YouTube networks of returns and debuts that we might have forgotten. So TW, give out those socials so we can finally get out of here. And what are we going to do next week, Reflectionites? I don't know. I'll keep you on your toes. keep you on your toes. Go ahead.
On your toes. All right. The Pro Wrestling Coalition Network is PWC Network at podbean.com. Hami Media Group at podbean.com and also Hami Media Group at channelattitude.com. Our show is at PW Reflection on the Twitter. Big Ray, can't do it without him. He makes all those cool little thumbnails for us and post-production and everything else. That's at Big Ray Hernandez on every single social media there is. I can be on Instagram at TommyWonder19, but also my political Twitter is at TommyWonder19. Snapchat.com is #Wonder. I don't know why I said .com. Facebook.com/TommyWonder. And at TheTommyWonder is my wrestling Twitter and my TikTok handle. Big Vito and Noel can be found at bigvitobrand.wixsite.com, patreon.com/thebigvitobrand, and you can watch the early release of this video at twitch.tv/thebigvitobrand. And then, of course, somehow, some way, somewhere, the Dum Dum Duo and an Idiot, since you brought him up. By the way, Matt listened to our show last week. I actually shared the link, not knowing it was YouTube. And he says, man, I want to talk to you because he wants me to do a podcast with him or whatever about hockey or something. But he's like, I love that your partner said that Dum Dum Duo owns you or something like that. He said something like, I don't know, something or another. But
I said Dum Dum Duo Idiots own. That's how I introduced you.
Oh, that's what he said. The Dum Dum Duo's own. I thought he said owns me. I didn't understand what he meant. And I was like, oh, owns me. But we are talking frequently about what we're going to do. We're just trying to figure out what it is we're going to do. Because he wants to make it smaller ones that we can put on TikTok too, and then have longer versions on the YouTube. But that's Dum Dum Duo and an Idiot at YouTube. Back to you, Chip.
All right. Well, thank you very much, chap. But anyway, you can find me on my Twitter at PWHustlePRF. That's PWHustleProf. And if this gets uploaded by 8-Track Brown, it will be available on the PWHustle YouTube networks. Follow my brothers in arms, Billy Ray Valentine at Obi-Wan You Know Me. And of course, the king of the reactions, who's taking a little vacation break himself. You can find him at the #8, TRAC Brown. And before we actually close, always know that TW, he gives a funny goodbye, but I don't want to do a funny goodbye, TW. I just want to send our prayers. Hopefully, when this gets uploaded this weekend, give your prayers to Superstar Billy Graham. He's on the mend in a hospital bed right now. His wife, I believe, said a couple of days ago, Reflectionites, that the doctors wanted to pull the plug of life support away from that. But of course, like TW, like Pastor Travis Volk, the power of prayer. His wife will not allow it. So give your thoughts and prayers to Superstar Billy Graham, and let's hope that he can beat this. And with the power of prayer, TW, let's send our love, our well wishes to Superstar Billy Graham. Let's put some positive energy for Superstar Billy Graham, and hopefully he can live a natural life and have his natural, can do a natural life and make the comeback as best as he can.
No pun intended for sure, but
and make a return the best way we know how. That would be the greatest return, TW. Would you agree on that? So with that being said, let's offer our well wishes to Superstar Billy Graham. I'm the Professor. That's Mr. Wonderful Dum Dum Duo and an Idiot's Own. That's the way I say it. Woo! Tommy Wonder saying good night, and we'll see you next time here at the PWR Podcast at Hami Media Group at podbean.com.